You're listening to the Clutter Fairy Weekly, a weekly webcast and podcast brought to you by the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas. If you'd like to participate in one of our live webcasts, please visit cfhou.com/weekly. You'll find a calendar of upcoming webcasts, as well as instructions for joining the Zoom meeting via the app or by phone. We'd love to see you. That URL again is cfhou.com/weekly. Now here's the weekly episode. Enjoy.
Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for January 21st, 2025. I didn't check to see whether my Irish twin sister Anne is with us today, but happy birthday to Anne. And
happy birthday, Anne.
And ha, you're older than I am now. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is a webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life that you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your questions and comments via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle gets to them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you would like to make a comment or ask a question yourself via audio or video. And we're streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can also share questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gayle.
Hi, Facebook.
We're going to start by talking about last week's weekly tittle, which was called Reclaim the Kitchen. The assignment was to address kitchen clutter using one of the approaches we talked about last week. Let's hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook. Who made progress in the kitchen this week? Please let us know in the comments. I didn't find any kitchen tittle reports as I was preparing the content for today's show, but two YouTube viewers chimed in on last week's discussion about food storage containers, so I'm going to share those.
Okay.
Viewer 47 Retta writes, I'm a household of one. I use lots of storage containers because I freeze my leftovers so I don't have to cook every day. I don't like the sets with big containers. 1 or 2 cups is my favorite size. I save sour cream containers to use. They nest very nicely and don't take much room. And I transfer to China to reheat. And then viewer CM wrote, those old, outdated plastic food storage containers can be used in other rooms to organize and store non-food items like bathroom supplies, craft supplies, cleaning supplies, and holiday ornaments. I wanted to say thanks to CM and 47 Retta for adding to last week's conversation. In last week's show, I ranted about the big boxed sets of food storage containers to get at Costco and Target and such.
And everywhere, yeah.
That always include some that are too big to get frequent use and some that are too small to be practical for almost any food storage task, unless you have, half a green pepper to put away or something.
Right.
I obviously forgot one of the Clutter Fairy cardinal rules, which is that you aren't required to use storage containers exactly the way that the people selling them to you had in mind. If you find a good deal on a storage container set, you're not required to limit yourself to using them all in the kitchen. And if you like to reuse containers in which food came home from the store, you're in good company. In our house growing up, the likelihood of taking an old margarine tub out of the fridge and finding margarine in there was pretty slim.
I remember you saying that about your mom's preferred storage container being a margarine tub. It's like a little, it's a little random raffle to pull out the tub and see what's in the container when you pull it out.
My parents favored Country Crock for a lot lot of years, which is a spreadable,
yeah, and it was like a pretty tall container. Yeah.
It was a good size. It could have some soup, some macaroni and cheese, all kinds of things you could put in there.
Yep, I bet your mom was storing food and maybe disguising it, hoping it wouldn't get all eaten by her ravenous 6 children before it was supposed to get eaten. That's so funny. Thanks for the reminder about the food storage working as storage containers in other areas, particularly in drawers where you need to corral lots of little items like in or even inside a larger box where you want to maintain some separation of smaller contents among the larger items. So Christmas decor was a good example of that, or
Yeah.
in an ornament box. Like you can store big ornaments, but then there's always little tiny things for which putting it into an old food storage container to hold on to it is helpful. And I use some in my move like that because I was putting things into boxes, and if it was all loose little bits, like in my office, I didn't want to throw a bunch of, loose paper clips and random small things in the office into a big moving box and have it all be cookie toss. So
Yeah.
that was it was a good reminder that you can use those things. They're containers and they don't have to hold food. They can hold something else. If you wouldn't cook in it anymore, if it's too stained with tomato sauce, you can move it on and use it somewhere else.
That's right.
Or if it's a size that you, like you said, the ones that are too large, you would never use them, too small, they're not practical. You can move them on and, use them in the drawer in the bathroom or use them in a desk drawer somewhere, and they're usually the shallow ones in particular work in desk drawers.
Yeah.
The taller ones won't, but the ones that are like 1 or 2 inches tall work really well.
Okay, we have some tittle reports.
Okay.
Ginger says, my kitchen table also serves as my desk and my craft table. Too much stuff has accumulated there on the table, in two other chairs, on the floor, and in a windowsill to the right of my chair.
Row.
So, one, I removed everything to other surfaces, mistake, and cleaned the table. Two, after 2 days, LOL, I worked through the stuff one section at a time. I refiled my old planners, refiled a few folders, sorted through, and tossed a lot of the excess fodder. I kept fodder I kept because it could certainly go in my art journal. I have plenty, and there's always more coming in. That
True
is
that.
such an important realization, and there's so many people who, if they just let me repeat the key part there. I tossed a lot of the excess fodder I kept because it could certainly go in my art journal. I have plenty, and there's always more coming in.
Always more coming in. That is the nature of art journal, junk journal. Anybody that does that kind of crafty paperwork, like you,
Found, if you're a writer who likes found text, you're always snipping little bits of text that you're going to use in collages, or saving every greeting card you ever receive because you see some artistic merit in it.
yeah, yeah, that list is, ooh, once you start saving the envelopes for the inside pattern, like one of the things that gets used in junk journals is that you open the flap and there's an inside panel in the envelope that is a pattern of some
Oh,
kind.
right. Yeah.
And oh my God, starting to save those envelopes so that because they all have a unique patterns like, yeah, and tomorrow another 47 envelopes are coming in your house. So on the day you do the craft, you can open your mail and come up with some choices right there. Like you do not have to save every envelope that's coming in the house.
To
So there you go.
to finish Ginger's report, she says I moved other craft supplies to the craft closet. And step three, I'm enjoying the results.
Yay, Ginger. You definitely were you describing an area that had been carefully grown and gotten out of control slowly over time. And so when you recognized that it was a problem and you stopped and did your thing, and now you are back to a more functional space, which is always the goal. And crafty people tend to, I talked about this weekend, crafty people tend to want to roll with the crafty part and they don't want to play with the cleanup part. They don't want to stop and put things away. And so if you have to stop and take a couple of days every once in a while to reset your surface and reset your room, that's okay. If you can do it more frequently and stretch out the time before you have to reset your area, that would be great. So that's sort of a preference thing. If you would rather stop and spend 3 or 4 days and do it all at once after 6 months of ignoring it, great. And if you find that really tiring and a chore, then maybe try to do some more, do some things earlier, put some things away earlier, make it part of your creative process that you spend your 15 minutes after you've been working to put some things away. And, that's always a shocker to creative people. You want me to put things away? Yeah, just like they did in kindergarten. Yeah.
Okay,
There you go.
Connie reports tiny bit of progress, got rid of a few recycling things that were lingering about.
There you go. Don't need those. Thank you. Thank
Ellen
you for
says,
recycling.
Ellen says, I did buy some bins to help zone my pantry cabinet. Much better. Moved some less used things to higher shelves and moved more used down.
Isn't that great? Yes. And just that concept of I use this and therefore this should be in the most easily accessible place. And I don't use this very often. And so that's the one that can go into, Siberia over your head. I think that is just making that shift. And in a pantry in particular, that is a great adaptation to do. So good on you for doing it. Good job.
Dawn says, I didn't see the program from last week, but I routinely have to clean out one drawer in the kitchen because it's my throw it in here, don't have time to deal with it right now drawer. I previously refreshed a couple of the other drawers.
Good job. Well, it's good to know what your problem area is and that you have to go into it every once in a while. And sometimes you don't always have to do the whole drawer at once. If you do it more frequently and open the drawer and pull some things out occasionally and spend 10 minutes dealing with some stuff in there, you might save yourself from the drawer becoming overwhelming. Just a thought.
Okay, Eclaire, who is rebranding herself as Just Eclaire, says, I made some good progress and I cleaned out all of the saved glass containers, old Tupperware odds and ends, and an entire set of 12 double-handled soup plates with matching plates. Now the cupboard is spacious and easy to locate items.
Isn't it amazing when you remove all of the volume? Kitchen cabinets aren't that big. They're just not big boxes. And so when you remove all the excess, suddenly there's breathing room and you can see what you have. It's such a great improvement for yourself. Good job.
Naomi says, I keep the clear containers, but recycle the margarine and yogurt type that you can't see through. And Lynn chimed in on that too and said, got rid of most plastic containers, only store food in glass containers now. Yeah, we've tended to favor glass or I don't know what it is. It's like acrylic, it's the very, very hard
Yeah, yeah.
clear plastic.
Mm.
Because it is really useful to be able to see what's in the containers instead
Un-
of
Unlike your mom's
the
country
margarine
crock stuff.
situation. Yeah. Yeah.
I think she was trying to hide food from y'all. Y'all were big eaters. The six of y'all were big, big children.
It's true.
She had 6 Amazon children at home, all trying to eat food at once.
Connie also said have to put cookie making things away till next December on my
Right?
list for tomorrow.
Right? And again, that was one you pulled down for the season. You're done with it. And you're going to go put it up and out of the way in some, out of the way storage area so that it doesn't bother your day to day life the other 11 months of the year.
We'll be right back.
Create Harmony is a podcast about setting an intentional rhythm and savoring God's blessings. In this place, we'll take a few minutes to celebrate everyday joys and remind ourselves how to notice goodness that is all around us. During the winter at Create Harmony, we shift our focus to all things cozy and snuggly. And while our days are shorter and darker, we stay attuned to the things that help us reset and restore. At the start of this new year, our podcast is filled with winter self-care as well as ways to declutter and clear your mind. Check it out.
And Lee says, cleared and cleaned the pantry, missed out on using a couple of special items that expired, saving for an occasion that never came.
Oh,
Ooh, that hurts.
well, and it's better to let it go. They're not gonna get, more tasty by staying in your pantry. So, hasta luego, out they go. And buy when keep the idea in mind and don't buy the supply before the party is planned or the event is planned, right?
Yeah.
Go get it when you have an actual event coming up.
I think it's a good idea anytime you buy something special in quotation marks,
Right.
to put a Post-it on the, in a place you'll see it, and like on the fridge, put a
Mm.
Post-it that says, the special things that you plan to use at some point. And I'm not saying every food you bring home fits that, obviously. Talking about,
Right.
expensive stuff, highly perishable stuff, fancy stuff that you're spending a little more money on, a
Something
can
you bought
of,
from a specialty store,
yeah, the
a fancy olive oil store that's in
that used to be in
oh
Chattanooga.
yeah, that was in
Yes.
Chattanooga that made all this really fancy infused flavored olive oils. And like, we came home with like 4 bottles of flavored all different flavored olive oils, and you have to like stop and think about how you would use them. And so the idea of putting it on the fridge to remind you that it's there so you can be percolating about ideas about how to make it happen is not it's that's a good idea. I like it.
Okay, one more and then we need to move on. Jane
Okay.
says that this past week I made a point of eating a few things past their best buy dates and disposed of those I knew I wouldn't eat that were aging.
Good job. You used up some of it, you threw out some of it, made space in your pantry for fresh supplies. Excellent. That's the best you can do.
All right, let's move on to our main topic.
Okay.
The mindset with which we approach organizing challenges can have a huge impact on the results we achieve.
Mm.
An unproductive or negative mindset can halt our progress when we've barely gotten into motion. Today, we're going to examine the impact of mindset on decluttering and suggest strategies to shift our thinking to be more growth-oriented and productive.
And here's our usual disclaimer. We're going to start as we usually do when discussing matters of the mind by reminding our audience that we are not mental health professionals. So please regard our advice and suggestions accordingly. We definitely encourage you to seek the help of a trained professional if you're experiencing issues or symptoms that seriously interfere with your ability to manage your home and your stuff. So seek out actual professionals if you need them. And in the meantime, we're just, talking our way about how we feel about this stuff. That's what we're offering right now. This inspiration came as a topic, came from a whole bunch of viewers with questions that were submitted to some of our previous surveys. Viewer Laura wrote to us to say, my process is generally to 1, begin, 2, become overwhelmed, 3, give up. And she asks, how can I disrupt this sequence? An anonymous survey respondent asked, how do I stop overanalyzing, researching methods, and reading about it, and to just do it? And then Karen asks, how do you change the focus from this isn't done, it could be better, to this is good, and it's a great improvement from where I started? That's a good shift to make.
Mm-hmm.
And viewer JM says, we talk about ideas for combating depression and negative self-talk while decluttering, and asked how to shift mindset to foster action versus intent. And what seemed to tie all these questions together was the theme of mindset. So Ed started doing some research.
Right?
What is a mindset? A mindset is a collection of beliefs and assumptions that help you make sense of the world and yourself. It influences how we feel, think, and behave as we find ourselves in various situations. An individual can hold multiple, overlapping, and sometimes contradictory mindsets. This fact is why you can have an easy time dealing with one area of your home, like managing your wardrobe, but find yourself overwhelmed or immobilized by another area, like keeping your bathroom counter clear. It's worth taking a look at what mindset you bring to the work when you're trying to start decluttering. Psychological literature on this topic talks about 2 fundamental mindsets, a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A person with a fixed mindset tends to believe that the hand you're dealt is the one you have to play with, that if you're disorganized, you're always going to be disorganized. And a person with a growth mindset tends to believe in the possibility of growth and change, that she can get more information or learn new skills to tackle a problem. Either a fixed mindset or a growth mindset can act as a sort of dominant theme underlying all of our thinking about our stuff and the project of decluttering and organizing. to a certain extent, various mindsets get programmed into us in our formative years. And one expert suggests that we tend to develop a fixed or a growth mindset, largely according to how we're praised or labeled as children. We're not going to get into that analysis, but some research suggests that children who are praised for their talents learn to think of those talents as their limits, while children who are acknowledged for the effort they make to learn to think of themselves as capable of more learning and growth. Let me say that again. Children who are acknowledged for the effort they make learn to think of themselves as capable of more learning and growth. And children who are labeled or stereotyped, for example, with girls are bad at math, may come to accept those labels as limiting beliefs about themselves. And the good news is that you can change your mindset. So even if you're finding yourself stuck in a fixed mindset, you can choose to not stay there. The key is self-awareness. We need to pay attention to the mindset we bring to the work we're trying to do, then decide whether it's helping us or hindering our efforts. So let's talk about specific attitudes that reflect different mindsets in the form of our survey responses. This survey was a little different from most of our surveys in that the goal was to encourage you to take inventory of your present mindset about decluttering and organizing in general, and then a few specific aspects of decluttering work where mindset plays an important role. We asked our audience to compare 5 pairs of statements. And actually, one of those statements was for each of those statements, one of them was a mindset that reflected, that prevents motion, the
It's a
fixed mindset.
a more fixed mindset. Yeah.
And then one statement was a mindset that encourages motion. It was the growth mindset. And so we asked our audience to compare them, and we're going to run through those pairs now and talk about them.
Okay. First question. The first pair of statements we labeled nature versus nurture. Statement A was, I am a naturally disorganized person, so I will always struggle to declutter and get organized. Statement B was, I believe that I can gain knowledge and develop skills that will make it easier to declutter and organize. We asked for each of the next 5, this question and the next 4, we asked our viewers and listeners to read the 2 statements, then answer this question: which statement best represents your current mindset? Statement A, statement B, something in between, or none of the above? What feelings, memories, or emotional states did these statements bring to the surface for you? And so we're going to look at some responses. DM says on this one, statement B, I'm a naturally organized person, but I can always learn new ways of doing things. Having things tidy and able to be found easily pleases me. It's nice when others feel welcome in my home.
Being open to learning new techniques can only improve your ability to organize. And that's true for a disorganized person, same as for a naturally organized person. And it's nice for everyone when others feel welcome in your home. And that is certainly a goal that you want to be aiming for. So being open to learning new techniques, always a good thing.
Okay, sorry, I got a little sidetracked. Okay, Margaret said, statement B, I am a 60-year-old female who has had a chaotic life, and I am just now able to breathe a little. I love your podcasts because I am learning what it means to be organized and how to bring more calmness and peace into my life.
Margaret, too, is showing the resilience of accepting that she can learn new things, even at her age, that will bring more calm into her life. I love how her mindset is focused on how to bring more calm and peace. Those are certainly motivating goals. And I'm with you, sister. I'm in my 60th decade, the decade of the 60s, and I am, peace and calm. That's what I'm all about for sure. So whatever is going to help me do that, that's what I want to be doing. So good for you that you're aiming for that too.
Okay, the second set of statements we called confronting the elephant in reference to our recurring metaphor about how to eat an elephant. Statement A is, when I try to declutter and organize, I feel completely overwhelmed and don't know where to start. Statement B is, my decluttering and organizing project is big and overwhelming, but I will get it done bit by bit. We asked our audience to read the statements and then answer the same questions as before. Here are a few of the responses we received. Monica says, statement B, I've learned that if I'm calm and my life is not under a lot of stress, I can be more relaxed about attacking organizing projects. Also, I believe in learning new skills to overcome obstacles.
Monica is sharing her mindset that lets her get things moving. If she's calm, she can tackle projects easier. And so being able to recognize what works for her and then being able to focus on being calm and finding a moment when she feels calm and not as so much stress is the better time to try to tackle organizing projects. And good for her for noticing that.
An anonymous respondent said, I'm A to the max. It's hard for me to get started and not get interrupted.
Believing that you're going to be overwhelmed or get interrupted makes it hard to get started in it. This is where making the work zone smaller comes in handy. Not trying to start the whole project at once, but focusing on some small part of it that doesn't give that overwhelmed feeling. It's all about narrowing the focus until it stops feeling like too much to even start.
I think it's also important to talk about her this respondent's saying it's hard for me to get started and not get interrupted. So it maybe there's some expectation management that needs to go on there for
Mhm.
you or for the people who are interrupting you if
Right?
they're
The
like
people that
hipping
are
into
getting in the
home with
way.
you. And
Yeah.
so I think that's a place where you need to be able to say for yourself, I'm not going to pick up my phone and look at it. I am not going to switch over to email while I'm doing this important work. And if you're, sharing your space with someone, to tell them, yeah, for the next, I've blocked off the next 90 minutes to work in the spare bedroom. Don't bother
Leave
me
me the
unless it's
hell
an
alone.
emergency.
Right. Yeah, but that's a perfect example of taking care of yourself around that. Like if you regularly get interrupted by grown-ups, the asking for that in advance and saying, I've made this schedule. Please, can you not interrupt me for 90 minutes? Can you hold whatever you need from me until 1:30 and just, let them know in advance that you are requesting this time out. And whether or not that's super successful, time will tell, but at least it'll make them aware that you have requested to be left alone, and hopefully they can respect that. Now, if you have children, that's little kids are a whole nother ball of wax. They don't really care that you want 90 minutes without their being bothered by them. And you usually have to make arrangements for someone else
Yeah,
to, okay, honey, can you please manage them for 90 minutes while I go deal with this problem? So making arrangements in advance to prevent your interruptions might make it easier for you to get going. And maybe 90 minutes is too much. Yes, somebody says maybe 90 minutes is a
right,
high
right.
number, right? And so
I just
adding for
I just pulled that number out of the air, but
right, yeah,
right.
yeah. But maybe a half an hour is what you can is all you can get.
Yeah.
But
Well, and not to, belabor this one too much, but the belief that you're going to get interrupted, making it hard to get started, that is part of your mindset. I always get interrupted, so I'm probably going to get interrupted now too. And so the shift there maybe needs to be to I'm going to choose a block of time where I can work without interruption, and then I'm going to ignore any interruptions that I can't, that I can't avoid. That's kind of what you can do about this feeling. Does that make sense?
yes, yes, it still makes sense. It's a good description.
M says, I have made it clear to a certain person that I am not available at this time on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday that person calls, has already called twice during our meeting today. Oh, M, I am totally there with you because there are people who have known about the Clutter Fairy Weekly for all the time it has been in existence, who
For a
still
decade.
always manage to find a reason they must talk to me on Tuesday morning. Okay, let's go on.
Okay.
Lynn didn't quite answer the question. But what she did instead was she vented, and
And
it's
has a great report,
and
so
it's
worth
very
it.
useful. So we're going to share it. Lynn says, "Allow me to vent. After moving in to take care of my mom as her dementia worsened, and then inheriting her house, the prospect of sorting and decluttering our combined whole house, home goods, and clothing was very emotional and overwhelming until I broke it down to each room and each furniture item in each room. My mom was a Depression-era pack rat that saved everything in case. She loved books, music, art, and clothing, and anything from years of QVC shopping.
Oh God.
Her philosophy was to buy more furniture to store her things rather than declutter what was no longer in current use. She goes on to describe the project of 3 years of effort to donate and dispose and sell all sorts of stuff of her mom's. And she says, decluttering mom's stuff required having to search meticulously through everything, as I found passports, photos, checks, etc., tucked in books as bookmarks, and important permanent documents filed away in her yearly tax records.
Mm.
Her house would be a good advertisement for the Swedish death cleaning theory.
I'm not surprised that it took you 3 years to reclaim the house and get the decluttering complete. She had a lifetime collections of all types in the house, and you had to get through it all. But congrats now that it's your house with the things that you love in there. Whatever mindset you used to get you there really worked, because you even got to the reno phase of the project. That's a big accomplishment. Maybe you can share how you stayed focused and kept going back to it and to over the 3 year period to keep going and get to the end. I'm sure the viewers would love to hear about that. That's a big project and typical timeline for a house that is very dense and one person trying to undo it all.
Yeah.
And so I'm not surprised that it took 3 years, and
Yeah.
good on you for making it happen.
Yeah. We took about 8 weeks to prepare my house for moving I'd lived in for 16 years, and I'm not a pack rat by any stretch of the imagination. So, when someone's been collecting for decades and decades and decades, yeah, it's going to take some serious time.
It's going to take a minute to unwind it. That is for sure.
Cindy says, I definitely have a lot of overwhelm leading to paralysis, but also with your help, talking back to those voices of negativity, telling myself it doesn't matter. Anything I do will be an improvement. And as to where to start, it's good to start small. Whatever I feel I can accomplish, bit by bit, it will get done. And picking the thing that is bugging me most.
We've said it before many times. Anything counts, right? We put out that mindset for a reason, because it works as a motivator, even when we've hardly got any time or focus or we're exhausted or whatever. It's built-in grace for any effort, and it's full of forgiveness for not being able to throw hours to a project. So we say anything counts for a reason, because we are reminding you to be kind to yourself and to not disparage or diminish what limited effort you can do on any given day, wedged in around the rest of your life and whatever's going on. And so it's totally, that is a mindset of, it's okay, whatever I get done, I can accept that. I can be proud of that. I can be feel accomplished for it. And, just like when Ed had eye surgery and his everything counts about walking was standing up, walking to the end of the block and back, because that's all he could do before he had to go lay back down and get the gas bubble in the right direction in his eye. So, sometimes you can do more, sometimes you can do less. But if you continue to be in motion and you continue to chip away, you will get there. And you don't have to beat yourself up for not doing it in the superhuman fastest way possible. You can just do it in the way that regular people do it, given their lives and all the demands on their time.
Okay, let's talk about the third pair of statements, which we called sentimental values. Statement A was, decluttering inherited items, gifts, and mementos of loved ones makes me feel sad and depressed. Statement B, when I declutter inherited items, gifts, and mementos, I feel grateful for the people and relationships they represent. And again, the instruction was to read the statement and then answer the same set of questions. Here are some of your responses. Allison said, statement B, I've decluttered items with bad memories. Looking at you, photo of horrible ex-boyfriend. So what remains is good memories of people.
Letting go of bad memories is remarkably freeing for anyone. No reason to hang on to those. Every time I've helped a client let go of stuff that reminds them of something tragic or miserable or unhappy, they're so relieved afterwards and always surprised by the weight that lifts from their shoulder when we let it go away.
An anonymous respondent said, statement A, I feel like I am letting go of part of them when I declutter their things.
I know it's hard to dismantle a life, and it wasn't theirs. I mean, but it was their life and it's not yours. So they're through with it. You keep your favorite things, and those things are tied to your specific memories of that person. That person who is gone can't expect you to keep other people's memories since you don't actually know what those are. And the things that you remember are the most rewarding to you. That person's happy that you have memories of them and is not wishing that you keep everything. They just want you to remember them. And so keeping those things that help you remember them are the most precious. And the ones that you don't have any great association with, they're not really supporting that goal of remembering them. And you can let them go on and become somebody else's memories.
Okay. Catherine says, B, usually. I still tell myself stories of how they would want me to be happy and it's okay to move on.
They would want you to be happy and to remember them fondly and also to move on with your life and continue to enjoy it. You're not done living yet, and you want to spend that time happy and not be in grief forever. So it's okay to think about it that way. It's okay to think about they would want me to be happy and they would want me to move on and not cry forever. And it takes a while to get there, but it is a worthy goal to get to a place where you can think of them fondly and not be sad and miserable.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think in some cases the grief remains forever, but what you choose to do with it evolves over time.
How you experience it.
Yeah, and so I think choosing a mindset of celebration can help relieve that when you have the work of dealing with inherited stuff, particularly, or gifts that you received from people who are gone now. You never loved the thing. You loved the person,
Right,
and you're still going to love the person even if you let the thing they gave you go.
right. And you can keep a representative sample of the things and not keep 100% of the things and still feel that way about the person that you love, right? Like you don't have to keep the full Monty. You have to keep
Right.
everything they gave you. And particularly for somebody that you've known over your whole lifetime, right? It's a really big volume by that point. And so letting some of it go is a good thing.
Okay, the fourth pair of statements was about just in case clutter, and this is where I think we had the most
Responses.
varied responses between A and B. There were a lot of people in an A kind of place. Statement A, I keep a lot of things because I worry that I'll need them in the future and won't be able to get them again. Statement B, I can let go of just in case stuff because I trust that I will always find a way to replace it or manage without.
Mm,
I think a lot of people are somewhere in between too.
right?
So here's what our viewers and listeners had to say about their just in case items. Evelyn says, A, scarcity mindset is a huge problem, especially for people who grew up poor.
Knowing that growing up poor instilled a scarcity mindset is really good self-awareness. And as an adult, you know that the scarcity mindset holds you back more than it serves you. The next step as an adult is to take that awareness of your scarcity mindset and to try to shift it and grow it into something more supportive. Holding that mindset so far in your life hasn't helped you expand your enjoyment of life, so it's just keeping you afraid. Putting some effort into shedding that mindset and replacing it with a focus on abundance instead can increase your happiness in life. And that's, as an adult, we have to take care of ourselves. And what we learned as kids doesn't always serve us as grown-ups. Or it may just be that we absorbed our parents' reflected fears and their worries about life and managing. And when you're a kid, you're not in charge of that stuff. You just live in the soup that is your parents trying to cope. And you don't know why it's terrible. You just feel that it's terrible. And so maybe you absorbed that fear from them. But as an adult, you can try to coach yourself out of it and shift to trusting in abundance instead of being trapped in that scarcity mindset, worried that it's never going to be enough, you're never going to have enough, it's always going to be a problem. And The truth is, you don't know which one of those things is going to be true on any given day. And we all have days when we have scarcity of resources and days where we have an abundance of resources. But spending of our time worrying about the scarcity days and not focusing on the abundance days doesn't make our life more comfortable or peaceful. And so in my head, it's as an adult, it's only in service to you if you can shift your mindset around that and try to focus on trusting in abundance instead of fearing scarcity. It's all a mindset anyway. And so, you've given plenty of time to the scarcity version. Why not try living with the abundance one for a while and see if it makes a difference for you? I'll
Okay,
bet it will.
Lisa Beth says somewhere between A and B. I used to save more than I currently do. I have to love something a lot to want to dust and care for it the rest of my life. For several years, I've been going through an area each month, and each time I always thin the herd a little more. I also practice one in, one out.
That really sounds like you figured out a balance that works for you. And now you're surrounded by things you love and you're practicing one in and one out. So the collection no longer grows beyond what you want to maintain. And that really sounds like a good balance. Like you've landed at some place that serves you well and makes living in your space comfortable. So good for you. Good job.
Okay, Christine says A, I'm afraid I will not be able to afford some necessary things as my everyday necessities just keep getting more expensive and I'm on a very strict budget.
I hear the worry that you will need necessary items that you can't afford because of your budget. But that potential problem is not impacted by keeping things that you aren't using and you can't see immediate need for in the next few months. Your worry is about new supplies, not the random stuff that will not address those needs. So you're saving things that won't help you manage your future supply needs. You're saving random things because you feel nervous instead. And I understand, like I said, I understand the fear there. And what you're worried about not having will not be well addressed by all of the things that you're keeping in the house because you might need it someday. Because really you're worried about, am I going to have food? Am I going to be able to have the electricity? Am I going to be able to, buy new clothes or buy the medications I need? That's what's really worrying you in the back of your mind. And it isn't about the, entire linen closet full of towels that you're not using, right? It's not the same. One thing will not address the other need. And so maybe you can release some of those things and turn them into, have a garage sale and turn them into some money, or just change your mindset to one of less fear and more abundance by sharing what in essence is your wealth, your overabundance of stuff with someone else who needs some things and feel more abundant as a result. Just a theory.
Okay, let's move on because we still have a lot to cover and time's a wasting. The last pair of statements explored mindsets related to sunk cost and items of significant monetary value. Statement A, I hold on to things that cost me a lot of money, even though they sometimes make me feel shame and guilt. Statement B, when I release items that cost me a lot of money, I'm grateful for the opportunity to donate them to someone in need. And here are some of your responses. Rowan says, somewhere in between. I regret the money I spent on an Instant Pot, air fryer, OXO's best mandolin, but that money is not coming back.
You're right. It's not coming back. So you just have to get okay with the buying mistake. It seemed like a good idea. You believe the advertising hype, or your thought process made it seem like you could benefit from these items. And then when reality didn't turn out to be what you predicted, so what? So what? You never know for sure until you try it. It's okay that you didn't predict the item's actual usefulness correctly. If you feel strongly, you can try to sell them again at a discount or you can trade them with someone. But ultimately, you have to forgive yourself for what in essence was, I thought it might work. I predicted that I could use it. And then my prediction was off. And that's okay. Like, we can't all predict the future with 100% accuracy. And there's no different in, I bought some stuff thinking they would be useful and then they weren't. Whatever. And so don't give yourself a hard time about it and release them and let it go.
Selena says, statement B, but with a nuance. Anytime I have things I spent some money on, I make sure I get at least a part of that money back. I've been successful. I always say that the little loss is the cost of having the experience and trial period of using the given thing or seeing it in real life.
Exactly. That's a great mindset. And I like it. I mean, we always feel like we want to be able to get all the money back. But if you can just sort of mitigate the loss by lessening it, selling it for something and getting something of that money back, then the difference, what you didn't recoup was just the cost of the experience. And I think that's a very healthy and supportive way to look at it. You make the effort, you get a little money back. You got to feel like, okay, I made a mistake. I tried something, it didn't work, or I used to use this and now I don't. The need that I had before doesn't exist anymore, and I can, get a little money back out of it, and the rest of the cost was me using it while I had it. Great way to look at it.
Ginger says, I consider it the cost of learning what didn't work. And
Mm,
I think that's a great mindset. I think also, Rowan mentioned the word regret. She regrets the money she spent. Well,
yeah,
yeah, we all have money we spent that we regret. And I think when you feel that feeling of regret nagging at you, it's important to look for the learning, look for the
yeah,
growth. What did I get from this experience? What did I learn from buying this thing? Well, sometimes you just learn something about the marketplace. I bought this because everybody was buying these and then it was on sale. And so maybe what you learn is the thing that everyone is buying that is suddenly on sale doesn't necessarily have to be for you. Or maybe, there's a more practical learning like, well, I brought the Instant Pot home, but I realized I have to cook a whole lot for this to be a useful tool for me.
yeah, to be
Or
helpful.
I don't do these kinds of things that's supposed to be good for, so I don't need one of these.
Mm,
So, take the learning, take the personal growth, and
run with
move,
it.
move forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
move along.
Okay, our last survey question was we asked our audience to write a statement that summarizes your current mindset with respect to the decluttering and organizing journey. I like to ask that kind of question at the end of the survey. Like you answered all these other questions. What are you thinking?
Right.
And here are a few of our favorite responses. Jesse says, I still feel overwhelming sadness letting go of my kids' toys, and I'm 75. I have
Oh.
let go of a lot, but still have a few that my grandchildren play with.
And having a few that your grandchildren play with, it is enough, right? There's a huge volume of toys that kids play with as they're growing up. Can't possibly pass them all along. They can't possibly all survive, and you can't possibly keep them all. But it sounds like you've whittled them down to a few that grandkids play with, and so let go of the rest. I think you are doing the best that you can be expected to do. Good for you.
Monica says, I'm more ready than ever before to simplify my life. I've misplaced important items or memories for being focused on minor items that occupy space.
That's a good goal. Being able to find the important items. Everybody wants to be able to do that. And the longer that you have stuff and accumulate stuff, the bigger the black hole becomes that things disappear into. So if you're trying to simplify your life again, then it's time to dial back and make some space to find your important items and park them somewhere so you can put your hand on them. Good job. It's a good change.
Evelyn says, during the last 10 years, I've learned a lot about decluttering, but there's still so much that can be improved. Decluttering is a never-ending process. Circumstances can change, and then you suddenly need different stuff than you did before. As long as there's new stuff coming in, something has to go.
That's true because your house is a finite box. I mean, I've said that a million times. When you start filling up the 3D capacity of your house, you are way beyond, you have definitely made your house into a storage unit. And so recognizing that letting stuff is always going to come in, and if you don't want to drown, then stuff always has to be going out as well. and just making that mindset change and recognizing you keep shopping or you keep buying stuff or you keep getting gifts. And if you don't release, that is going to build up in your house until it's overwhelming. So good for Evelyn for figuring that out.
I want to point out too, well, again, I think we should say thank you to everybody who answered this survey. We got a lot of responses, and I really love the way that survey responses are sort of like they're sort of like free group therapy, you know.
Yeah, a little bit.
I think it's really interesting to read the survey responses and see yourself reflected in other people's answers. It was also
So,
interesting to see. Go on, go on.
so that you know that you're not alone. You're not the only one feeling or doing that.
Yeah, yeah. I also noticed, there are people who we're wholeheartedly in a place of, growth and learning on some questions, and maybe a little more stuck and with a more fixed mindset in other areas. And Saskatchewan Jane commented on that. She said, "My current mindset varies depending on categories of items.
Mm.
Hard to declutter my clothing as the prices have increased by several 100% in recent years. The clothing is primarily natural fiber European brands, too expensive to replace. I know I should give away a third as I'm now in 2 closets and it would be a gift to others. There's a great deal of guilt for not donating."
Okay. So maybe getting rid of the third, giving away the third would be something that you would want to try to sell in the marketplace instead. Maybe it would make it feel better for you if you could recoup some money at current pricing for things that you bought, some time ago. Maybe you'll make a little money on of it. And I get the idea of you have all this clothing and it still doesn't change the fundamental question. Can you wear them all? Would you wear them all? Are they all styles and shapes that you would actually want to go out in public in? And even if they are, fancy European natural fiber brands that you would have a hard time replacing, if it's an item that you wouldn't wear and you couldn't wear, or it's a color or a style that has aged out and is not appropriate for you anymore, then holding on to it is no different than holding on cheap clothes from Target. If you wouldn't wear it, it doesn't need to be in your closet. You can keep all of the fancy natural fiber clothes that you actually like to wear and that you can fit in, but if you wouldn't wear it now, it might as well send it on to somebody who would. That's my theory.
Okay, last one. Tanya says, "I'm turning 64 soon and have been a widow for 5 years. We had a lot of combined items. I've gone through all the emotions that hindered me starting the decluttering process, but as time passed, I grew my decluttering muscles. I'm now in Swedish death cleaning mode. Soon, I hope to be in maintenance mode. Thank you both for being an integral part of my decluttering journey."
Go, Tanya, go. That is awesome. And I understand completely how hard it is when you become a widow, the ramp up to actually being able to let go of things that remind you of your spouse and your life together. And it's hard to get started and they're very emotionally labored, emotionally burdened. And so proud of you that you've gotten that far down the road and now you're in let's clear it out, let's clean it out mode. And soon you'll be just maintaining the cool space that you like for your, widow senior years. So go for it. We're all clapping for you. Yay. That
Okay,
is a big project.
I'm going to come back to you in a few moments for a final thought, but I want to talk about next week. We will be back at the usual time next week, January 28th. And this is going to be an Ask Us Anything episode. I have not picked which questions we're going to answer yet, but that's going to happen pretty quickly because I want to send out an email announcement about that tomorrow. So watch your email. Oh, also, we have a special announcement. I almost forgot.
Oh, yes.
We want to say a special thank you to Anna for becoming our newest
Anna. Anna.
our newest Patreon supporter. If you'd like to help us in our efforts with a recurring monthly donation of any size, please visit cfhou.com/Patreon.
You like how fast I got the sign out?
Very good. Your contributions help us offset the costs of producing the weekly webcast and help us fund new projects that we're working on. Thank you for your support, Anna, and all our generous underwriters.
We really appreciate you. We appreciate you taking the time to go out there and set up an account and, let us be taking a little bit of your money every month. So thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Okay, any final thoughts on this topic?
So Ed wrote a sentence that I thought was really appropriate, and he was willing to share it. Thank you so much. And here's what he said. Change is inevitable, but growing in response to change is a choice that we have to make. And my addition to that is that a growth mindset works better in a world and a life that's constantly changing. The truth is, there's nothing static about our life, and it is not going to be frozen in time. And so recognizing that it is going to change all the time, and we can accept that in order to enjoy our life, we need to be constantly growing and learning, adding skills, improving the way that we interact with people and things. And all of that is only going to help us bob and weave, cope with life, get more enjoyment out of our living. And so we want to encourage here at the Clutter Fairy, we're always going to want to encourage a growth mindset instead of a, what's the word? Static. I've drawn, what was the other word?
The fixed.
Thank you. Fixed. That's the word I was looking for. We want to encourage a growth mindset and not encourage a fixed mindset, because I think the fixed mindset is always going to keep you stuck in not being able to move forward and not being able to tackle the project. And a growth mindset is going to be a way that you can keep chipping away at your project and improving how you find your living space and how you interact with your family and friends as they come into your space. And so that's what we're aiming for. And we hope that we can help you do that. And we hope that you keep coming back to listen.
Gayle, why don't you give us the tittle?
Here's the weekly tittle. Reset your mindset. This week's assignment is to dig deeper into your own mindset with respect to decluttering and organizing. First, schedule a session to work on a small decluttering and organizing project or a small subset of a larger project. Before you begin your work, reflect for a few minutes on how you feel. Revisit the survey questions if you need prompting. Those are great. Do I feel A or B? Do I feel A or B? Then you want to write a short statement about any negative mindset or limiting beliefs that you'd like to set aside, and a positive, productive mindset that you'd like to practice. So you can think about it and think, I hear myself with this negative mindset that's going to make this hard, and I would rather practice this more positive mindset or productive mindset that's going to let me move forward. Work on your project, taking breaks from time to time to revisit the mindset statement that you wrote. And hopefully you can sort of keep reorienting yourself back to the positive, productive mindset that you want to practice, and see if it makes it easier for you to go through the process. Do that exercise. Come back and tell us about it next week. Tell us how it went.
All right. If you're watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from you, so please keep your questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on Facebook, YouTube, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thanks everybody for joining us this week. And I had I traded an email exchange with someone who listens to us on the podcast, but doesn't realize that on the YouTube channel, we have playlists set up. So if you have a specific topic, she was talking about moving, and I reminded her that we have a playlist of a whole bunch of episodes that are about moving, things about getting packed up and moving. So if you have a specific topic that you're interested in hearing about, you can check out our playlist on YouTube and see if any of those playlists are an area that you need to focus on. Otherwise, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you're here every week. We will be back next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.